A new grad at Kent State University in Ohio is getting a lot of attention after her graduation photo went viral. Now in the graduation photo, Kaitlin Bennett can be seen carrying an AR-10 rifle. And she did this as a way of drawing attention to a policy at the university that she believes is unfair. So there she is. There's another angle, of her with her gun. And apparently, a 22-year-old said that she chose to pose with the rifle for her graduation photos because it made for a stronger symbol that as a non-student, she could at least arm herself at the Northeast Ohio campus. So the argument is that students, faculty, anyone who is affiliated with the university, works at the university, or learns at the university is not allowed to carry any type of lethal weapon. However, in the state of Ohio, laws are passed that allow people to do open carry. So if someone wants to visit the campus and do open carry, they are allowed to do so. And she believes that that double standard is unacceptable. So again, Kent State University bans students, staff, and faculty from carrying deadly weapons, but state law allows graduates and visitors to openly carry weapons on campus. And so since she had already graduated very recently, she decided, all right, now I have the right to carry my rifle on campus. By the way, it's actually her brother's rifle, and she's planning on purchasing her own very soon. Now, that went viral, and of course there are people who support her, and then there are people who disagree with her and unfortunately have sent her all sorts of threats, which I really wish wasn't happening, even if you disagree with her. With that said though, Fox News decided to seize on this moment to interview her and draw some more attention to the story, and I thought that some of her statements were interesting. Let's go to the first video.
And we were doing an event where we just opened a discussion to people to come talk to us about gun rights, and my cameraman got assaulted. If we had a firearm present on us, open carried, I definitely believe that wouldn't have happened.
So she's saying that people are sometimes attacked violently on campus, and she wants to have the right to protect herself. She wants people to be able to keep themselves safe, which, by the way, might be a legitimate point if crime and violence took place on campus, if it was known as an unsafe environment. But according to reports, it's actually one of the safest campuses in the country. So Kent State University was recently ranked the safest college campus with more than 10,000 students, and also the 25th safest in the country. The university has a full-time certified police force of more than 30 sworn officers who protect the campus. The officers are visible, well-trained, and on duty 24/7 to protect students, staff, and faculty. That's according to a statement from the university itself. But in terms of the ranking, the university didn't rank itself. It's ranked nationwide as one of the safest universities in the country.
And she'd like to make sure that it doesn't stay that way. So Kent State shooting was one of the most famous shootings in American history. Those were better times though. 4 people died. These days, that's unfortunately not a big shooting in America, and not even a big school shooting in America. But back then it was like, wow, there was 4 people shot at Kent State. So I don't know if she's oblivious to that or thinks, oh, this will be a great way to get on Fox News. I'll be an even bigger jerk, and at a place where there was this famous shooting, I'll bring this assault weapon and get to kind of rub it in people's faces.
So her point, and she did bring up that shooting, her point was, that shooting was perpetrated by the government, right? And we as Americans should have the right to carry wherever we please, however we please, because that is how we protect ourselves from a tyrannical government.
What a preposterous thing.
So look, and yeah, it is a preposterous. I don't know why that talking point still exists, because it doesn't take much to debunk that talking point. She believes that Americans should have the exact access to the same weaponry as the government does. So you think that everyone should have access to tanks and drones,
and RPGs and
nuclear
nukes.
Weapons.
Where's my nuclear submarine? I have to fight tyranny.
Yeah.
I have to fight tyranny. By the way, the government shot left-wing protesters. So I know she's really concerned about left-wing protests. Should we arm? We should ask her. I'm sure they asked her on Fox, right? Because they do Fair and Balanced. Should we arm all the left-wing protesters in the country? Do you want that? Are you sure you want that? And then secondarily, what was she gonna do? She was gonna what, shoot back at the government? Will she do that now? Is she mentioning that? So she's saying like, hey, I wouldn't let that kind of shooting happen here. If cops show up, I'll murder them? Is that what you're saying? Because I thought Fox cared about blue lives. I thought that they mattered. But she's saying the tyrannical government, in that case, it would be military, cops, etc., that you would murder them, right? I mean, that's what you're saying. Because I want to understand what you mean by tyrannical government and how you would use your weapon against them. Because you're not talking about speech. You're not talking about your constitutional rights in that regard. You're talking about, I have a weapon and I will murder government officials if I view them to be tyrannical. Boy, you seem like you got a great education and you seem like you're really mentally stable.
So look, I also want to ask more questions. So who's the arbiter of tyranny, right? Like who's the arbiter of that? Because I mean, I think about where our country is at this moment. And look, I don't believe that we're dealing with a dictator. I think he believes that he'd want to be a dictator, but luckily we have checks and balances and a system of government in place to at least check his power a little bit. But what if someone decides, no, Trump's a dictator, this is a tyrannical government, I'm gonna go ahead and attack, right? I mean, who decides? It's not really well thought out. And also, even if the person correctly determines, okay, we're living in a tyrannical environment and I'm gonna take action, that person will be smashed in a second, considering the type of weaponry our government has. So that talking point, it just doesn't hold up. But I wanna go to the next video. This is where she starts talking about the issue of white privilege. Take a look.
It's been crazy. I was not expecting the blatant racism that's been thrown at me, the right out death threats, just
what
the,
kind of
the
racism?
Calls. So they're saying that I have white privilege for going out on campus with my AR-10. They are saying that this all has to do about me being white, that I was able to do this. I think that's very insulting to minorities. I don't think that anything bad would happen to them. I actually had a black police officer with me the whole time that was just, he loved it.
Okay, so let me jump in before you do, because look, I know that angers and frustrates a lot of people. It frustrates me as well. But the way that she described her, black security guard with her, I mean, that cop with her, I didn't know she said cop or security guard. Either way, made it abundantly clear that she doesn't really know or understand what white privilege is, right? So the point that people are trying to make is that open carry might be fine and dandy for someone like her, but open carry was not fine and dandy for a lot of black individuals who were gunned down. So for instance, Tamir Rice was playing with a toy gun and people freaked out. He was a 12-year-old playing with a toy gun at a park. People freaked out, called the cops. The cops showed up and shot him within 2 seconds, no questions asked. So it's not that she did anything wrong per se, but it just means that she will get the benefit of the doubt if she decides to carry her gun openly in public. Another example is Philando Castile, who clearly told the officer during a traffic stop, I have a licensed gun in the vehicle, it's in the glove compartment. Communicated that with him and the cops shot him anyway. So you have to understand the double standards that take place in society. It's not just saying, it's not a racist insult to say that someone has white privilege. It just means that you don't have to deal with the types of stereotypes and the lack of, what do you call it?
Discrimination?
Yeah, exactly. Like you don't have to worry about people perceiving you as a threat simply because of the way you look.
So look, these conservatives, they love to get attention, and they love to cast themselves as the victim. So they say, oh, minorities love to say that there's racism. So the minute they get a chance, they're like, you said I have white privilege? You're racist! Oh, I'm the victim of racism. Oh my God, I'm such a victim. Everybody cry for me, and Fox News goes, oh yeah, she's a victim. No, white privilege is something. It doesn't mean, we've said this a million times, it doesn't mean you're rich, it doesn't mean you get wonderful things, people don't hand stuff to you. It means that there's things you don't see, like when someone else carries a weapon, etc. So we can give hundreds of these examples. John Crawford at Walmart picks up a toy gun from the toy gun shelf at Walmart where they're selling it. Cops are called on him because a black guy is holding they think a gun. If a white family, you know how many white families have bought toy guns at that Walmart? Because they're selling toy guns. And he picks it up, cops come in and shoot him in 2 seconds. They don't ask, is it a toy gun, is it anything? Are you graduating, are you not graduating, etc. You think they're gonna shoot Kaitlin Bennett in 2 seconds? Does anyone in their right mind believe that? In Yale, a graduate student, African-American woman, studying in her own dorm room, gets the cops called on her. It's another college campus. She got cops called on her for studying at a school, let alone carrying an assault weapon. You think a black guy walks into a college campus carrying an assault weapon and he is not surrounded by cops immediately? Because they don't live in our world. They live in their nice little bubble where everything is hunky-dory.
Yeah.
And you get to push people around and make these statements and do whatever the hell you want. And then if anyone says, hey, maybe that's not a good idea, oh my God, I'm the victim, I'm the victim. Please, you're a total idiot.
Okay, so one other thing that I do want to say is, look, she's right in looking at the issue on college campuses and saying, well, if these people get to open carry, why don't I as a student get to open carry? You're right about that. No one should open carry. No one should open carry on that college campus. It is a safe campus. There are no issues there. I don't want to go to a college campus to either teach or to learn where people are carrying their weapons openly. That is not the type of environment most people want to exist in. So, I mean, look, and I know the university is in a tough spot because it's a state law, this is a state school, and unfortunately, they're gonna have to try to find ways around what's going on, and the way that they deal with it is not letting teachers and students carry the guns on campus.
Look, these right-wingers are mental. They're mental. They want everybody to walk around with assault rifles. Oh, great, so the minute there's any kind of conflict, everybody can open fire. How stupid are you? How it's so incredibly dangerous. You're gonna go to a college campus with all that drinking, with all those bros who are ready to get into a fight in a second, and you're gonna arm all of them with assault rifles, you moron. You know, and you're gonna take one of the safest campuses in the country that had a terrible school shooting at it, and then you're gonna say, oh yeah, I'm gonna make a great point. I think everybody should get to carry an assault weapon. I get to do whatever I want. I'm a white, pretty girl, okay? And then if anybody criticizes me, oh, I'm the victim. Why don't you cry for me, Fox News? Get out of here. 2 easy ways to follow the Young Turks. One is hit the subscribe button down below, then you're a TYT subscriber. And second is ring the bell. And when you do that on YouTube, you're notified of our videos.